Here is R.P. Height with the Seagrass Recovery and Scott Welch with Columbia Sportswear.
And at Columbia, we'd really like to thank and introduce Jeremy Linneman of the Ocean Foundation. Without them contacting us, we would have never known the importance of seagrass restoration, and we are very thankful and happy that he allowed us to get involved in this great initiative.
Jeremy Linneman, I'm the manager of the Seagrass Grow Campaign, and this is really a key example of what we do. We're an international community foundation, so for us it's about supporting the people that actually do the great work. So it's about fostering innovation and building partnerships. So creating a bridge between an organization like Columbia and an organization like Seagrass Recovery so that we can do this important habitat restoration and really educate people about what they're doing and how they can be better stewards of the environment.
And we're off to the East Flats. Kenny, we're here on the East Flats, just outside of Port Aransas. We've got a big old deep prop scar here.
That's right.
We loaded these socks. What are these?
These are called sediment tubes. What they do is they containerize the sediment in place so that we can restore the sediment back to the natural grade in the surrounding areas. Because as you remember, seagrass can't grow back across these severe trenches. We have to get the sediment in place and hold it while the grass has a chance to move back across. So that's why these work, is that we containerize the sediment, hold it in place, let the live sand inside allow for that recolonization of the prop scar.
So what happens to this sack, or this sock?
It completely breaks down over the course of 3 to 6 months. So when we come back in 3 to 6 months, you won't even see it. But the sediment,
all that's left is the sand.
Exactly.
And grass growing on top of it.
That's correct.
That just breaks down kind of like a dissolving stitch.
Exactly, just like that. It's triage for the prop scar so we can stop the erosion, which is the most important thing that we have to do. Once we stop that erosion, it allows the seagrass to grow back across. And sometimes we'll come back and plant it, but if we end up having to do that, it'll be 6 to 8 months from now, back in growing season.
Y'all ready to lay some tubes down?
They're heavy, so.
All right.
Guys, this is how when we install the sediment tubes, this is what they look like when they're put inside of the scar. You line them up end to end inside of the scar, so what you would have is the edges of the existing meadow would be touching each of the two sides. So if you look at it from the side, this is how deep of a scar that we'd be filling up with these sediment tubes. If you've ever been to the beach, when you hold your hand into the water with a handful of sand, it's going to wash out.
Yeah.
So what these do is they hold it in place long enough for that organic material to move in and create that live sand like we were talking about earlier. So this is how the seagrass will be able to grow back across the scar.
Coming up, it's time to play ER and save the seagrass meadow.
Here we go. Thank you, guys.
We're back, locating and restoring a prop scar. Dr. Shane.
Thank you, man.
Here we go. Thank you, guys.
This is Bob Height. He's one of our operations managers with Seagrass Recovery. And what he's doing is he's placing that sediment tube up against the end of the scar. And this end right here is what you put up against the edge of the scar. So when he does that, he'll take the next one when you guys bring it over to him, and he'll lay them side by side just as you saw on the deck here.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. How big is the scar? It's okay.
I mean, it looks like it's probably 60, 75 feet. I mean, it goes all the way to the end of the bank over here.
Oh, wow.
So,
that's huge. Oh, that's long.
You should see some of the ones around here. There's ones that are hundreds and thousands of feet long. So Eric and Selena, Bob actually handed us up what's called a rhizome, or a root system of the actual seagrass. And what this is turtle grass is the common name for this, and this is the one that is really old. This is the one that we were talking about. And what you're looking at here is you got the root system, so just like anything else that you'd see in your yard. You got your roots running across and your leaf blades that come up. And if you look, the way seagrass grows, you see how one's longer than the other?
Yeah.
Which one do you think's older?
Let me guess.
Obviously this one, right? Because
Yeah.
we know that from trees. Well, see how this end is pointed?
Yeah.
That's the direction that the root is actually growing in. So what this would be is the rhizome is actually growing across this way to make the meadow bigger. So this is how seagrass grows. It's a very slow process, but this is how this particular species grows.
So how old do you think that this little section is? Have any clue?
Not that old.
Now, I can age a buck. Can you age seagrass?
Not me personally. We'd have to bring in a biologist to do that. But you can certainly see when you look in between the leaf blades, what they do is they constantly send up new leaf blades at certain times of the year. And a lot of times if you peel back, especially on these younger ones, you see this tiny little one starting to sprout?
Mm-hmm.
That's the next leaf blade. And that's how this thing will continue to grow. And that's why seagrass is so important, because it constantly is continually growing. Stays healthy.
Awesome.
So why and how is Columbia involved in the seagrass restoration?
Also for Columbia, environmental education and conservation are our two biggest focus areas, and seagrass is an example of where you can provide environmental education, and that actually is the conservation. If you can educate people who are coming out here to fish how they can operate their boats safely in seagrass beds, then that can serve the seagrass beds and the fishery for all of us. Definitely.
And this is not just a Texas deal or a Florida deal. This is a worldwide issue that save the seagrass?
Truly worldwide. The impact to the seagrass is not always the same. The area in the flats area in the Gulf and the Keys, where the biggest impact is typically props, is a bit different than, say, Columbia's home up in the Northwest, where our biggest impact is moorages of sailboats, because our water is typically about 35 feet deep. If you go to Japan, Korea, China, water quality will probably be one of the bigger issues. But if you go to Australia, New Zealand, it's really similar to here, and it's the same type of issue where if you just educate the users, you can avoid having to do a lot of the conservation.
I would think that the great white sharks swim in over there in Australia, New Zealand, they cut a big wake and probably tear up the seagrass.
I hope to never find out.
I don't either. We're in Texas. We're in Port Aransas, sitting here in the East Flats, and I'm telling you, when anybody talks about seagrass or the seafloor or closing off areas to do repair or whatnot, you know, what is y'all's position with the seagrass recovery?
I think from our company perspective, we have the technology and the ability to come in and restore the severe prop scars. And with Columbia's help and the Ocean Foundation and others, we're able to actually implement a conservation without closure mentality, where if we can keep these areas as maintained as possible and educate the boaters in the area to help them understand of areas to stay out of, how to safely operate their boat, to not damage natural resources, then we can certainly make a difference and make it so that we don't have to start going to the extreme levels. There are times where you have to help jumpstart a situation, and it may be best to just advise people to stay out of an area for a short period of time to get a restoration project going. But for the most part, if we take better care of the resources, we don't have to go to that extreme.
Right. I mean, Kenny, you're a fisherman at heart.
Absolutely.
You don't like to see waters closed off.
No, I think me personally, I've lost more access to the fish that I love to catch through loss of habitat than I ever have from the closure zone.
Wow.
So I'd rather see healthy habitats that we can come and fish and enjoy, and not even have to worry about the extreme situations that in some areas of the world we unfortunately face. But luckily, we can make a difference. We have the ability. This is not a guess whether or not this will work. It's scientifically validated technology that it will recover that prop scar inside of 2 years.
At Columbia, we believe in the greater outdoors. We want people to go outdoors. We don't want closures. We want to protect the outdoors so that we can avoid ever having closures. And with the seagrass issue and with the technology that Kenny just talked about, we realized as a company that if we threw our support behind this as well and helped to push this along, hopefully we could do just that and avoid any type of closures. You know, we're at a kind of a critical area of seagrass restoration where if we can come in now and fix these areas, hopefully we can avoid closures everywhere.
And as environmental restoration projects go, doing seagrass restoration, especially with these types of techniques and technologies, it's a relatively quick project. I mean, most environmental philanthropy type projects that you can get involved in, you may never see the benefit in your lifetime, or someone will tell you what the benefit is, but we'll come back to this spot where we did this restoration inside of a couple of years and you won't even see the scar anymore. And we can thank Columbia for what they've done and be able to point to them to an exact project location and say, look at what you did, and say thank you.
Right. And we would thank Majesty Outdoors for helping us educate all the viewers out there so that you all can join all of us here in keeping seagrass beds as pristine as possible.
You know, we are about the next generation. On your right and the left is our next generation, and they're going to get married and have kids. And I mean, we've got to take care. We got to take
Maybe not
care
these
of
two together.
These resources, you know, and again, so many people just look through a tunnel vision and they worry about today. It's like, you know, we're talking about this conservation without closure and these kind of things, and they don't want to see us out here doing this because they're fishing right over here 500 yards away. But the point is that we care about these teenagers, we care about their kids, and we care about their kids. And that's what I think is so cool about the Seagrass Recovery Program and Columbia Sportswear being behind it. You do have that vision where you see past what's today, and you care about the tomorrow.
Coming up, here's living proof that recreational fish thrive in the seagrass bed.
Look at that!
After we finished our work, we took some time to do some Texas-style flats fishing.
Look at him buried down that grass. Boy, he hit like a creek thing. He's a thick one. Look at that! I think it's dinner.
Guys are going to eat us.
As the evening came, we decided to call it a day and head back to port. Now, along with the seagrass work, we did have some funny, comical moments.
First fish in Texas. Couldn't caught it without the expertise of Bill and Majesty Outdoors and Wiley X sunglasses.
There you go.
I agree.
You know I'm rolling tape, right? This can all come
Nicely done.
Cajuns that have no manners.
We just got it before.
Sorry to disappoint you.
I have not signed a release.
I was not prepared for that. Mom always says, eat your lettuce.
We really appreciate the opportunity to appear on Majesty Outdoors. In the outdoor industry, we are really concerned with getting youth outdoors, and our latest statistics show that the average kid in the United States spends about 8 minutes outdoors a day. When we asked them why, and we had focus groups across the country, what we found is kids thought going outdoors was boring. They just simply didn't know what to do. So shows like Majesty Outdoors are exactly what we need to educate kids on exactly what there is to do outdoors and how much fun it really is.